So this is our first episode of All Things Aikido Radio, and I just want to introduce Glenn Brooks and John Thompson. But could you guys give us a little background? How long you've been training? Do you own a dojo? Just a little bit about yourself.
All right, sure. Well, thank you for having me here. My name is Glenn Brooks. I am currently an instructor at Aikido of Scottsdale in Arizona. I started my training in 1979 with Akira Tohei Sensei in Chicago, where I lived for over 20 years and trained with him prior to moving to Scottsdale.
Very nice. And John?
I'm John Thompson. I'm the chief instructor of Aikido of Denton. We've recently rebranded as Denton Martial Arts Center. I actually started at Aikido of Denton in 1995 and was underneath Bob Mason and Akira Tohei Sensei and then later Yamada Sensei.
Cool. Great. And I'm Skip Chapman and I own Jersey Shore Aikikai since 1998. So I'd like to just keep this super casual and, not worry about talking about ranks or anything like that, but just talk about, some things that we've seen over the years and maybe some things as Dojo Chove, ideas we might have from running dojos for, how old's your dojo now?
About 23 years.
23 years. And how long did you say you owned?
I took over the dojo in 2000, but we've been around for 20 years.
Okay, so I'm on 21 years. So, it's a lot of history. Maybe we have some things we can share that might help people out. Maybe not, but, just want to talk about some things. So we have a lot of conversations all the time, and we talk about different things that we see in the art and, different concerns I think we have and different things that we like and different things we probably would like to change or see change in the future. But before we start all that, can we talk about why you changed your name?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. First off, I had students in my dojo, so my Aikido students who were high-level other martial artists, particularly Juan Pablo Villarreal. He's actually my karate teacher now. Mm-hmm. He's been training karate for 40 years, so
wow.
He's always wanted to do that, mm-hmm. and so it just came to me one day. It didn't really come to me. I just figured out that I need to have that in my business model.
Cool.
Why not teach my students how to strike better, offer them another art? I learned it myself.
When did you transfer over? I know it was pretty recently. When did you change the name?
Probably about a year ago.
About a year
when we started. Still
working it out, right?
Still need to finish it out, but we changed the website about a year ago.
And is it just now Aikido and then karate, or is there anything else?
I also added a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. I have a really strong friendship with a gentleman named John Bjorkston. He's a 4th Dan in BJJ, one of the highest level guys in the DFW area, mm-hmm. world champion at his time. So I have him in for a day. I also was certified in Tony Blauer's PDR and Spear mm-hmm. system.
What's that?
That is a system. It's not a martial art. It is completely self-defense based. It has a lot of psychological and physiological science behind it. Mm-hmm. And it was just a really good filter for me to bring another aspect to my students.
Cool. And how do you offer that to them?
We do that once a month. We do a 90-minute workshop.
Cool.
It's open to the public.
Now, do you see yourself adding other arts to this scenario in the future?
I'm very open to that. I'm open to it as long as there's the right teacher.
Right.
You have to meet an ethic that I think all the teachers carry into the system.
So can I ask you a question? What if I'm your student and I want to take a BJJ class? Like, is that one price in the membership, or so I can do pretty much anything you offer?
Absolutely.
That's really cool. It's not a bad idea. So it's something we talk about a lot of times. I don't know, but I think we've talked about it over the years. It's like owning a dojo and having it be empty during parts of the day, right? So we all pay these rents, or you're at a community center, or you're just starting out, and you might be saying, okay, this is great. I don't know about you guys, but I remember when I started, we had a couple of classes a day maybe, and then the thing sat there empty, and it used to kill me because I was like, I'm paying all this money for a building to be empty for like 2 hours that I'd have classes, right? And it would be like, but that's how we all kind of start, is we all start with this, all right, let's build it, let's fill it up, but even after you've had a dojo for a lot of years, it's still empty part of the time, right? And I mean, that's always been a struggle. And I mean, I've played with different models with it and everything. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like it's an issue? Do you feel like, would you ever sublet out your space? Put it that way.
I have.
You have?
But I was conflicted about it. A couple reasons. One, you want to think that you're staying true to the tradition of Aikido, and,
Sure.
And so you want to keep the purity of the dojo, and then it's also somebody else who you're going to have in your space, like a family member coming over, and are they going to be respectful of the environment you're in? Who we
you don't want to walk in and see somebody running around with your boken or something off the kamiza, I mean, we joke, but like that could be like people don't understand anything about. A lot of people don't understand. I shouldn't say like your people. I think they get it. The crew you have there right now, but
there's formalities. There's etiquette that Aikido really holds of high ideal, and so you want like-minded people in there, and then that's also not always easy to find.
No.
And I have tried it, and I've had good results with it, but currently I don't have anyone in there, but I totally am up to and open to do it.
So if like the right person walked in tomorrow,
yeah,
and you thought it was a good fit, you would do it?
Absolutely.
Some dojos try like yoga and everything because that seems to be a good fit, and I've had that in my dojo before because, I don't know, seems like yoga people are very respectful of the dojo. They have their shoes off for one. They put a yoga mat down. I mean, it's kind of like a nice model. I mean, we don't really take off with it a lot, but it's something we've done in the past that I find uses a very small footprint, kind of adds, sometimes you'll have people cross over want to try a class. But yeah, I think I think it's a challenge for all of us is saying how we have these beautiful spaces. I mean, I've been to your dojos many times and your dojo many, many times. And it's just like they're beautiful spaces, but you can't just open the doors to anyone, because and it's not going to be so beautiful either, So it's like it's definitely it's a tough thing.
I think you should list out at least 5 to 6 particular ethics that you want in your business model, and I do say business for a good reason because, like we're saying, it is a business. You have to survive in that way to spread the art, and if you offer that to the right person, if those ethics don't line up when they read them, if they give a face, then you know it's not a good fit.
Yeah,
and then you can just start from there. And I actually had a sublease to another group, and when we changed the model, he didn't like what I presented him, and we had to say goodbye. And there's no hard feelings there, but it was the model that I wanted to go to.
But I love that. I'm all about that right now in my own business. In a couple of them is really defining relationships better, because what I find is a fault of mine is I expect people to know better or expect people, and you know what, I it's definitely a fault of mine.
Yeah.
But I definitely kind of go into a relationship being like, you should know better. You know what I mean? Like when somebody does something kind of outside the norm.
You think it's common sense for you?
Yeah, but
Right.
I find that common sense isn't really
common.
It's not that common. It's tough because you're going on an assumption of what you think is common sense. Where if you bring somebody in, let's say, doesn't know anything about Aikido or anything about maybe martial arts, and they just want to come in, use the space, and they're going to be respectful and everything else, but they don't get it, and you walk in and everybody's water bottles are on the kamiza, we might freak out, but I mean, really, that's my fault because I didn't define that. Right. So, I love the idea of defining the role and defining the rules and saying, hey, look, this is what's expected. If you can't do it, it's fine, but this is what we're looking for, and this will keep. I think it preserves the relationship too, and if anything, it sets up some strong boundaries to say, do you think this can work within these parameters for your benefit and for mine? And if it can, then great, you're adding to the space and everybody's happy. But if it can't, then no problem.
Well, it's also adding to, I take that back. You asked me if I'm subletting. I'm not subletting, but I also am offering another program. I have a kickboxing program that I offer in the dojo. One of my students is a professional kickboxer, an ex-professional kickboxer, and so he asked if he could have classes a couple of mornings a week, and I was like, great. So he's got bags hidden in the morning. He booked that morning the classes. He brings them out, and half dozen of the students take advantage of that.
That's awesome.
And it offers another dimension to their training. The kickboxing, whether it's an exercise focus,
right,
or they don't want to be professional kickboxers, but they start to see how that complements and helps improve and
just going to help their
expand
Aikido
understanding
practice.
of a martial
Sure.
art and everything else. So it and also attracts other people outside in the public to something that they may not know or really hear about Aikido, but they'll hear about the kickboxing. They come in and then they're introduced to the other things that your school offers.
Sure.
And so I think it's all good, and it's all about which follows the Aikido principle about the mental and the physical, the mental, all spiritual, of healthier minded, physical, mental health, and as long as you're down that road, whether it's the yoga or kickboxing or the jiu-jitsu or anything else in the dojo, I think it's a good thing for the people and the public.
I like what you said, the way it gives exposure to people that would never come in, right? So you might get one or two people that are coming just for kickboxing and maybe didn't even know what was in your dojo, or maybe, which is worth probably a whole nother talk, just the intimidation factor of walking into a dojo, which, is huge.
Right.
I mean, so if they have another reason, or maybe it's that, kickboxing sounds familiar, or yoga, I know what that is. I hear it's at that place. If we can get them in the door, we can form a relationship, even if we're not in the building, because now they start to feel comfortable in your space and see it's not some weird thing. It's just, it's just a space. It's actually a very nice space, very beautiful, and the people are very kind. But I think, that keeps a lot of people from walking through our doors sometimes. So maybe that's another way to get people in. I don't know. Maybe it's another way just to get exposure. But, definitely, I think that's great. The kickboxing thing sounds cool.
Yeah, cool.
Someone asked me, why Aikido over other martial arts when you started? And I was like, well, what's your favorite color? Why is it your favorite color? Well, it's just because it's my favorite color. It's just what I identify with.
Right.
And we need to understand that people pick different martial arts just on who they are.
Sure.
Some people like to hit things. Some people like to throw things, right?
Sometimes it's just convenience,
Maybe it's convenience. Maybe it's the teacher.
Sure.
But we shouldn't stop these people from going down that journey. And that's the avenue that they're going to feel comfortable facing all the fears and all the hard conflicts that we learn in martial arts. So if they're attracted to the karate class, that's great. Half the time in my karate class, my sensei is going to show an Aikido application because he's one of my brown belts.
That's cool.
So then
That's
they have
really
that
cool.
question, well, what are you doing there? Well, you should ask that guy with the yellow belt. He runs the Aikido program.
Right.
And the same thing with the BJJ, because my teacher has a black belt in Aikido. So there's this overlap there. But we shouldn't stop people from walking in the door. We should definitely get them in there.
No, that's great. That's great. So any other ideas for utilizing the space when it's dead?
I'm open to hear. I've been taking some notes.
Well, I mean, you both have kids programs. Not everybody does,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
So we
yeah.
take for
Big kids
granted
program,
that.
right.
Lean in just a little bit because I think they're losing you. We all take for granted that everybody has a kids program. Not everybody has a kids program. Not everybody wants a kids program, and I get that and I respect that. If you have a dojo, you only want to teach adults. That's fine. But I mean, we talk about it all the time that. Not only is the kids program a great program just to get kids in the door. I mean, the fact is most children are going to try martial arts at some point in their life, right? As they're growing up.
We hope.
We hope. But they're probably going to set foot in some kind of martial arts school, whether it be a karate school, taekwondo, BJJ, whatever. They're probably going to step through the door at some point in their lives. Why not ours?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So nobody's saying it's going to be a perfect fit. Nobody's saying, that program is going to be it. But you're definitely filling the dojo during dead times. You're building a whole nother base, which, for us, and I mean, we talked about this recently, how kids programs are great because they feed your adult programs. Right. We used to say that you should have a college program, meaning taking a child from age 4 all the way up till they go off to college. And then hopefully when they come back from college, if they're back in the area, they come back to the dojo as adults. But I mean, that's without even subletting, that's within your own walls. Mm-hmm. And even if it's a couple days a week, who cares? Maybe 1, maybe 2 days a week. Right. See how it goes,
It's a tough nut to crack. I don't think everyone's ready to teach kids.
No.
That's a definite. I mean, I have a master's in art education. I've taught middle school, elementary and high school at sometimes. So
not everybody wants to teach kids.
And they shouldn't.
No.
Like they should make
if you
a
don't
really
want to
strong
teach kids, you
decision
probably
on that.
shouldn't.
Or I think you have another person run that program.
I have a couple of my senior students, my black belts, teach, and they have their own kids in the class,
Right.
and they're great, and they love doing it.
Yeah.
And they have a great rapport with the children, and there's many from the adult class help in that class, and I've done it for years. And for me, I want to focus on the adult program, and they love doing the kids program, and they're great at it, and it feeds in, and the adults, the parents, really are encouraged by watching how they interact with their kids.
Yeah.
And
But what's cool about that is you recognize it wasn't for you,
yeah,
right? And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Teaching kids is hard. I mean, I know, like it's very hard, but it's super rewarding. But it's like if you force that, it's probably not going to be that successful.
And there's a double win there, because when you let someone else do something in your dojo,
Mm-hmm.
then it's more part of their life.
And they're vested in your dojo too more.
So
Now they
like-
feel more important, like they're giving
Yeah,
back.
It's like everything
With that
rises
said,
with that.
how hard is it to find those people? Right? I mean, we all know that's, and again, this is just three guys having a conversation, but, sometimes the people that step up that want to teach kids aren't the people that should teach kids. And the thing with Aikido, there's a lot of, I love it, and there's so many great parts, but, maybe people should do background checks on people before they teach kids, unless you've known them for many years, right? I mean, most of us have had these relationships. We know these people. But if you had a newer student and they were like, I would love to get involved with the kids program, we have a responsibility.
True.
As business owners, as Dojo Cho, as just protecting everybody in our dojo as we should, background checks aren't a big deal. It's $25, $35 to do a background check. I mean, that's what it is in Jersey, at least. So, there's really no excuse to just make sure that not only is maybe the person's not qualified, maybe the person has a phenomenal disposition and character, and you want to train them for that, then maybe a precursor to that would be, hey, would you be open to a background check? And if somebody cringes, you know what I mean? Like, if they're like, oh, no, not the background check. Game over. Oh, you know what? Did I say kids? I said, no, I want to teach cats. No, I don't. But, in all seriousness, like, that's a red flag.
Yes.
And unfortunately, there's not these standard operating procedures for dojos in place. So, and my first dojo, I was 24 when I bought in on my first dojo. I was a kid. I didn't know anything about business. Nobody handed me a handbook and said, hey, background check your kids' instructors. And, there's just some things that I would love to see just be better resources. Just because we're good at martial arts doesn't mean that we're good business owners. And I can tell you, I wasn't at all. And it took me many years and a lot of mistakes to be able to get to a point where my dojo took off. I don't know. Maybe down the road, somebody should put something together to help people have more of a resource of just, ideas where people pool ideas and give, a bunch of instructors come together and just share ideas on the business end as well. Everybody shares technique ideas, it seems like. It doesn't seem to be a problem there for good or for bad. But, maybe we should be talking about other things, too, if we expect this thing to stick around for a long time.
Right.
The psychology of teaching kids is way different than teaching adults. And I would think, or at least for me personally, I can say that the better I got at teaching kids, I was way better at teaching adults.
Oh, yeah.
Because kids are they're hard.
Yeah. It's we used to say when we would talk about it is like that 1 half-hour, 45-minute class is equal to like 2 or 3 adult classes. Because
You have to be on.
Yeah.
Kids running off the mat sometimes,
and if you're off your game, there's a chance the child could get hurt or not have a good experience. Not for nothing, but it's 2 for 1. You're dealing with a child and a parent when you take on a child, right? So it's not like an adult student. We're dealing with student X. We're dealing with a parent, another parent maybe, and then a child. And, there's a lot of people to make happy in this scenario and make sure that they're having, first of all, why are they there? You're talking about background checks on instructors. What about, why did the child come in?
Yes.
Are they being bullied?
Yes.
Is there a fitness issue? Is it that they just love the martial arts? Like,
Do they have special needs? Because I have a lot
all
of special
that.
needs kids in my classes, and so I have to, even though I'm teaching a group, I have to tune in individually to each and every one of their needs and be aware of that.
Sure.
So it's a lot to parse out. And you mentioned you had a team, and I know that you raise up and coach assistants. That's a real fundamental part of that.
Mm-hmm.
You've got it, and I've raised my team to the point now where at times I can actually sit back and facilitate the class.
Not now, you can't. You got to sit forward. There you go.
And that's really beneficial, I think, to running a successful kids program. Is you have to have helpers and coach them up. Like that's
100%.
You have to start that. I think if I had one thing to tell myself back in the day, it would be write everything down. Get helpers in there right away.
Well, it's not a one-man job, right?
No.
So, I mean, we would like to think it is. I don't quite my watch, sorry. But we would like to think it is, but it is by far a one-man job. Like, you said you have a team, right? And you depend on them and lean on them hard to make sure they're preparing for class and setting up for class. But one thing I wanted to go backwards on, talking about, like, why can't we goal set with an adult? An adult walks through the door. Maybe we should be talking to why they're there more.
Right.
Maybe we should be checking in with them more. We're maybe a line of communication from the start with a child or an adult, and then throughout their training to make sure they're getting what they need. I would have liked somebody to ask me why not against any dojo I've ever been in, but nobody ever asked me. I don't even know if I'm sure why I started, but but you know what I mean? Like, it does change. And I mean, your goals walking in the door might not be the same when you're Shodan.
Right.
But you should always be having goals. And the day when you stop having goals, I think we as instructors have to be a little concerned, because now you have a unmotivated student that you have to figure out. They don't know what they want. How am I supposed to know what you want? Right?
Yeah. Or they're explaining about why they started and what they're getting. They start hearing themselves explain what they're getting out of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's been more than one conversation I've had with a student who, at times, it felt like they're kind of, I don't say burned out or getting less interested, and you start to explain, why were you here at the start? Well, this, or they don't realize they're learning things because it's becoming more second nature. It's becoming more natural, and they don't really see it as concrete as it was then.
Well,
and
I mean,
you start bringing it to their attention. All of a sudden, hey, wait, you're right. I am less stressed about this, or I'm applying myself more there. And so, but I want to get back to something else, if you don't mind. Getting back to the parents.
I do mind.
Not too bad. I'm moving on with it anyway. But one thing that we found that was also very helpful was focusing on the parents watching the kids.
Ooh.
And the parents, and
That's a
instead
hot
of
button
when
topic.
we started like individually talking to the parents after class, like, hey, how's Johnny doing, that kind of stuff.
Phenomenal.
And they'd say, oh, he's doing great, oh, his grades are this. And then what we do, we started talking with the parents while they're sitting with the other parents.
Right.
And
having somebody like off the mat who's not teaching.
And then, one of the
assistants or whoever.
Assistants, or walk off, talk to the parents, and they would say, oh, they're doing so great, and then another parent says, oh yeah, mine is doing this, or they're hearing about how it's helping their student or their child, and it because a lot of times it's the kids, and you have kids, that how many different hobbies and different activities they're in, and it's hard when the parents pull them from Aikido because they have so many other interests and they don't see the benefit. We know, or we think we know what the benefit is for us, and we do for the child, and sometimes they like it, but they have to choose. They have 5 other things they got to get to.
Sure.
And
you're competing with everything every day, and now more so than before. Now you're competing with PlayStation. Now you're competing with a Game Boy. Now you're competing with, regular after-school activities. You're competing with organized sports. You're competing with everything. So how do you build enough value in your program to say that you can do these other things, but we need to make room for this, because are you getting the anti-bully skills that you need from football practice?
Right.
I mean, maybe you are, and that's awesome. If you have that coach and that child has that coach where they're giving you that skill set, I don't really know of a lot by me that are doing that, but what does the child need? Is he lacking focus? And maybe those other activities are helping, but we can help more in a martial arts setting. So it's really maybe drawing attention to, like, I love the idea of like just polling and like talking to the parents and getting like that finger on the pulse, because a lot of times if a parent is on the fence, you can pick that up and you can cut it off. And if they're just like, oh, just scheduling is so hard and I just can't get them here, and what am I going to do? We might have to stop for a couple of months. You know, we've all heard that. A lot of times you might be able to say, okay, well, what's the problem? What's the schedule look like? Let's look at our schedule. Did you know we had an early Saturday class? Did you know we have this? I didn't even know we had that. Okay, well, let's just change his days he's coming in and try to save it. But that lack of communication is really where we all lose students. And that doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't start with kids. That's with adults too. I mean, have you ever had an adult, just one of your great adults who've been with you for years, just all of a sudden quit? And then you're like, what just happened to me? Like, you feel like you just got punched in the head and you didn't see anything coming. And I mean, I don't know, we've all done this long enough. I think we've all had that student where you were like, no matter what happens, this guy or girl is going to be in the dojo, and then one day they disappear. And we're left here scratching our heads. But, you know I've reflected on that many times and been like, what did I do wrong? You know, it's always like you kind of look at yourself. And then when you can't get them back, it's like, well, maybe there's a breakdown in communication. Maybe there was no goal setting. Maybe they got bored. Maybe there was a life emergency that happened that they're not comfortable telling us about. But if you're communicating with them, you might be able, I'm not going to save everybody, but maybe we have a shot of, cutting that off and saving a student and keeping somebody in the art.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, I've noticed that even my parents talking to the new parents was kind of doing what you're talking about. I've been noticing the last couple of months.
Right, getting them to interact with each other off the mat.
Oh, that's huge.
And my parents are huge. We have that little lobby, and the new parent walks in, and I get the kid on the mat playing the game, and all of a sudden, my other parents are talking to the new parent.
Dude, I've had people
it's amazing.
Only bring their kids because of their friendships they've made with other parents.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I need to see Susie.
Yeah.
So you're going to class.
And
it's been like, yes, awesome. You are. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but I mean, look, as a parent, there's going to be times your kid doesn't want to go to class.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, right? There's going to be times where they're going to be like, I want to quit.
It's a lesson.
This is with everything in life. So if I let my kids, which I have triplet 13-year-olds, if I let them quit everything they ever wanted to do, they would not go very far in life. Yeah. So even when they do something and they're not thrilled about it, we set and say, you're going to do this for a year. Okay? At the end of the year, if you are completely against it, we'll let you quit this activity and we'll try something else. Yeah. But I think a big part of it is that letting that, making communication with the parent and being like, look, Johnny's on the fence right now. Let me see what I can do on my end to get him excited about class. Let's see what we can do to try and get him fired up. And then just give me 6 months. Right. Let's make a 6-month goal. If you're not happy in 6 months and you want to pull him, that's fine. But let's make a plan. And we talked about this, back in the day, but big thing is, what does Johnny do before he comes to class, right?
Oh, God,
if Johnny is, let's say playing Halo for an hour, and mom's like, put down the controller, we're going to Aikido. What do you think Johnny's going to say, right? He's going to say, I don't want to go to class. So a lot of times the communications we have with our parents are, well, what is he doing right before he comes? You know what works really well? Have him do his homework right before he comes. So if a child does their homework right before class, watch how fast he wants to come to Aikido. If you're like, hey, do you want to take a break from homework? We'll go to Aikido and then you can come back. All of a sudden you've changed, but it's a behavior that needs to be changed. And these are basic things that work. They work so, so well. And they're really easy to do. It's just we have to have the skill set. And that's what we're saying about just communication, all these things. I think if we could make more of a resource for people to have this information, whether they ever use it or not, at least it's out there. I know I would have loved to have this coming up.
No, I mean,
I felt like,
business model templates of some sort.
Anything. Just, I felt like a canary in a coal mine. Like, I didn't know what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong, and I was getting poor advice from so many people. But, you'd get advice from people that didn't have a kids program telling you how to run a kids program. And I'm like, well, okay, if you've never driven a car, how are you going to give me lessons on driving? It's like, that really has to come from people that have a certain level of experience and can back it up. And whoever it is, there's tons of great kids programs all around the country in all different federations. It doesn't matter. But finding and reaching out to those people that have successful programs and just being like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. Maybe they have ideas.
There's easy questions. Like any kid who walks in my door, what did you learn today in school? Parents right there. I put them on the spot. they have to say something they learned that day.
Sure.
And now the parent's like, why didn't I ask my kid that?
Well, let's take that a
So,
step
like-
further. What did Johnny learn in Aikido today?
Yeah.
And that's what we used to do all the time, because the average child will say nothing. It's just how a kid's wired. So if you get a kid, and let's say he's taken my class and he has the most fun he's ever had, he's happy, he's ecstatic, you're like, I'm on fire, like I'm the man. And this kid walks over to his mom, and his mom's there, she didn't stay for class. She's like, how was class? What'd you do? And he's like, nothing.
Yeah, right.
You just want to pick the kid up and be like, what is wrong with you? You know? But the thing is and the way we used to fix this, and we still do, is at the end of class we would say, okay, what are some of the things we worked on today? And if you plant that seed and you spend 5 minutes at the end of class saying, well, we talked about how to deal with a bully, and we talked about how to get away from a grab if somebody grabs me in the hallway by the back of the hair or by the back of the shirt.
Right.
Yeah, and what else did we do? And how did we do that? And how? Great, now that's fresh in my mind. I go home to mom. The first thing I'm going to say is, oh, man, we learned how to deal with bullies today. What parent in their right mind would pull a kid from a program where you're teaching them how to deal with bullies and give them real-life self-defense, that happens to be Aikido, to help them so that they're safe? I mean, nobody would. I'll tell you right now, I'll pay 3 times the amount if you're going to tell me how to do that, and if my kid can come home and feel self-confidence and give me that back. So that's a simple thing. It's 5 minutes at the end of class. Easy stuff.
We do vocabulary words, callbacks, Japanese words, yuki, courage. We talk about what that means at the end of class, and I have it on the board. So they can look at the board and call it back, but by the end of the day, they're not looking at the board. And at the end of class, I'm asking, well, what is courage? So they have to give me a response.
So now they ask, Mom asks, what'd you learn? We learned what courage is in Japanese and what that means to me.
It means I act even when I'm scared or I have fear. I still do something. That's
which,
courage.
Nothing against Aikido, but, I got 3 kids. All my kids have done Aikido since they were 4, but what's the real value is those life lessons.
Yeah.
Like, I would love for my kids to have the best Shihonage and Ukemi in the world, believe me. But it's not going to help them get a job.
No.
It's not going to keep them out of trouble. It's not going to keep them from hooking up with the wrong friends and making stupid choices, which they're probably going to do anyway. But if I have one tool to help me, and, we've talked about this too in the past in conversations, is being the triangle. You have the parent at the top, you have the academic team at school, and then you have the martial arts teacher. And you make this support system and say, look, we're at the base. We're here with the school system to try and make sure your kid gets what they need. And we're just here to support you. What do you need? Well, Johnny's not focusing. Well, Johnny has a hard time with homework. Well, Johnny does. I walk in and ask Johnny to do something. He doesn't even acknowledge me. That is easy to fix. That is so easy to fix. Yeah. And I got to tell you, if my kids don't respond to me, I grow an extra head. Like, I lose it. Like, that's not happening. Purpose. You know what I mean? But, like, that little stuff is monumental for a parent. And if you can help me with that, it does. Let me get my checkbook out.
Yes.
It's like, and you know what? Okay, we'll quit soccer before we quit this because you're going to be supporting me and you're going to give me the support I need. And being a parent is hard. Yes. So it's like a lot of these things we're talking about, we don't have to change the way we teach Aikido, right? We don't have to sell out. We don't have to do these things. And, I know that sometimes that comes up when I talk to instructors. Well, I don't want to sell out. I don't want to teach kids. And, they don't learn. I'm going to teach kids the way I teach adults. Well, good luck with that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's like saying I'm going to take my 4-year-old and teach him algebra. It's like kids don't learn that way.
If we don't teach kids, then we can't expect to have new people coming up in our art. And
No.
the whole reason I would think that we want to have this art go forward is we got to have more people and more young people. And we're going to have to learn.
You're going to hold that thought because we're going to have a whole talk about that. So that's for our next episode. But I'm going to try and keep this short so y'all actually listen to it and watch it. And we're going to wrap that up right here.
One more thing to that.
If you have to, because we didn't talk about rank, but you are the highest rank in the room, so I don't really have a say, apparently.
I'm pulling rank right here. Let me rephrase that. I got one more thing to say.
Oh, there you go. There we go. That's the Glenn I know.
So, well, you mentioned this earlier. Well, where do we go to get this information? I mean, all of us have wondered and are trying to figure this out. Everyone with a dojo.
100%.
So,
if you care.
You're going online, you're going to internet, your own organizations, your own federations. I mean, where would you look to find this stuff? And that's its own discussion. Obviously.
It is its own discussion, and I ain't selling jack. So, like, I'm not here to sell anything. These are just conversations with a couple of my friends to try and talk about problems that we feel like a lot of people are going through. But, I mean, there's plenty of ways to go about that, but not really formalized. And I mean, it's like, I joke with my kids all the time because they're like, oh, I found out about this, I found out about that, and they're like, oh, and I'm like, where'd you find out? And they're like, oh, I looked it up online. I'm like, well, it must be true, I mean. So I mean, there's so much. It's great we live in this age of information is so easy to access, but there are so many people that, in my opinion, maybe should not be speaking in the term of experts, and maybe should not be giving advice about things. With a little research, you look and maybe they're not experts, and we're just taking their word for it because they have a lot of followers and they have a lot of hits and they're popular online, and all of a sudden we're like, well, they must know what they're talking about because they have followers. I think that is the danger of information right now, is there's easy to get a lot of bad information that can hurt you, your dojo, your students, but it's nobody's fault. I mean, other than the person putting out the garbage, but I mean, it's not our fault. Like, it's... First thing people do now when they want to learn something is they go online and go to YouTube and, I want to learn how to deep fry a turkey, all right, let's go. I want to learn how to run a dojo. Let's Google how to run a dojo. Good luck with that. Watch what you're going to see. And I'm sure there's some crazy great information out there, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I think that if there was a vehicle or just a group, an informal group of people that actually cared enough to put out the right content in a respectful fashion and just exchange it, maybe that would be helpful. Maybe not. Maybe people don't want it.
To the art, not even just the individual dojo, but in a more global sense, the art itself, the growth, the preservation of it, the development.
Well, I mean, it's like, if we don't take care of the dojo, then how's the art going to grow, right? And I mean, if the dojos are dying, then the tree's dying. The dojos are the leaves on the tree, and if they're on the ground or if they're brown and shriveled up, then so is the art. So, I mean, regardless of how big this tree may be, if it's not healthy, it ain't going to live that much longer. It might look like it is, but it might not, which is a whole nother. We won't talk about that. So let's keep it short. We're going to wrap it up. Thanks for listening. If you guys have comments or anything you'd like to share, as long as they're positive, then put them in the comments below, or hit us up and tell us something else you'd like to hear us talk about. We'll be happy to cover it. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.